The great Megyn Kelly joins us as always from the United States. Watch your stuff on YouTube, listen to her podcast, The Megyn Kelly Show. And we had to talk about that poll that we mentioned earlier in the week. 71% of Americans don't want Biden to run in 2024.
The press corps, the Democrats are already starting to turn on him. You're already starting to see the articles of like a White House in disarray, the stress of the staffers and having to prop him up all the time. They don't write thank you notes. They don't have proper White House etiquette inside of this Biden White House. I mean, the petty complaints and big complaints starting to surface in the press in the same way, frankly, we saw during the Trump administration. But Trump was Trump. I mean, Trump was constantly causing upset, amongst everybody who worked for him. So far, the Biden staffers have been a bit more loyal, but these types of articles usually wait until the end of a president's term. Here we are just approaching the midterms, and the Democrats have seemed already to realize this is a one-term president. We better find another captain of our ship.
And the only problem is that the very same poll that has that obviously bad news for Biden, it also says that the majority of Americans don't want Trump to run in 2024. So is it fair to say that Trump is the only Republican who could lose in 2024?
I think that's probably right. Though I remember you and I discussing a poll about 4 months ago that showed Trump wins against Biden and DeSantis loses against Biden. Now, polls change, with the wind, so that may no longer be the case. But I have seen other polls along those lines suggesting DeSantis loses in a head-to-head matchup against Joe Biden. It seems impossible. I don't believe that sitting here right now. But I can see why it might come out that way, because Trump has got that built-in 33% of the Republican Party that will do anything for him, and they're not yet loyal to DeSantis. They like him. If Trump decides not to run, they'll back him. But if it's a bruising battle between DeSantis and Trump in a primary, don't count on that faction of the Republican Party to turn out for their nominee. Those are Trump voters. Those aren't just Republican voters. And it's not that they would vote for Biden. They would just sit home.
Now, Megyn, I've been listening to a few lefty podcasters. They seem to claim that the recent Supreme Court decisions mean that the red wave has peaked, that abortion and that ruling has changed the conversation. Do you think that's the case, or just a bit of wishful thinking from the basket weavers?
No, I think that's the kind of talk you're going to hear in the 7 days post these Supreme Court decisions, naturally. But by the time we get to November, those issues are not going to be the issues driving voters to the polls. People are not going to vote on abortion, and they're not going to vote on a mildly expansive interpretation of the Second Amendment. I think what's going to drive the turnout and the vote in November is the economy. Is this record inflation? Is gas prices? People have had it up to here. And all we keep hearing from this president is excuses and blame placing on Putin, on the gas station owners, on you if you're a whiny complainer. That's what's going to drive his terrible fortunes, his party's terrible fortunes in November. So I do think 538 is wishful thinking. I think they're really wrapped up in abortion and guns, especially on the left. And so they see them as these, enormous issues that are going to drive votes. But the truth is, even the Supreme Court tends to animate the right more than it animates the left. So if anything, I think those things are going to inure to the Republicans' benefit, probably not the Democrats' benefit. And we have a whole summer of pain ahead of us economically before we even get to that vote.
I think you're right. I think in the end, it is all about the bloke in charge, not the Supreme Court. Biden is so bad he falls up the stairs. So give us an idea, with a little bit of distance, quick deep breath. What is he doing that is so wrong?
I mean, I do think there's a serious question here about who is in charge. I mean, I genuinely think the American public get that he's out to lunch and he's not calling the shots, and they don't know who is. It's not like under Obama, you had a very strong chief of staff in Rahm Emanuel. And so if this were an Obama out to lunch situation, you would know. Biden's got this guy, Ron Klain, who nobody really knows much about, and he's not beloved or hated or really thought much about, same as Biden. All you see is, loop after loop of Biden falling up the stairs and then down the stairs and then stumbling and then lost at the White House and then losing his words and not remembering the name for the Pentagon, never mind our Secretary of Defense, and getting redirected by the Easter Bunny. And there is a crisis of confidence in him as somebody with working faculties. But on top of that, he hasn't led. He came into office with people saying he might be the next FDR because he had a 50-50 tied Senate instead of something that was going to be Republican controlled. And suddenly they thought he had some mandate that he didn't have. And his poll numbers cratered like nobody's business after our disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. And Paul, he's never recovered. He hasn't had one crisis that he's dealt with swiftly or with a clear plan in place. Even the Ukraine situation with Putin, now some people give him mild points on that. Okay, seem to, work to get our European friends together. Well, what happened back at home? He didn't open up the spigot when it came to oil and gas. He let Americans suffer. He just continued to point at Putin and say it's his fault. Now this week, he's blaming the gas station owners. He won't do anything to make it easier for Americans to not suffer that pain, and that would be an easy thing for him to do. He doesn't have a plan. Either that, or he may have mused on one, but he's too beholden to his left-wing groups, like the green groups here in America, to actually unleash it. Either way, he has no more constituency. There's no faction that's excited about him, and you can't win elections like that.